Welcome to my pop-up mini-series in which I'll be drawing and painting two very different architectural icons. Now then, how are you doing? I hope you're well. I've chosen two subjects from my recent travels that I think pose a few interesting challenges to the artist. Over the 4 episodes, I'll be sketching them out in pencil, painting them up in watercolour, and hopefully dealing with those challenges as I go along. My first subject is Sydney Opera House. Today, I'm going to draw it out in pencil. Sydney Opera House took 14 years to build and cost $102 million. It was opened by Queen Elizabeth II on the 20th of October 1973. It was designed by John Utzon, a Danish architect whose design won out of 233 entries in a competition launched in 1954. Well, despite its conception being fraught with a certain amount of controversy and drama, the building remains one of the world's most famous landmarks. It hosts over 1,500 performances annually and is visited by more than 8 million people each year. In 2007, it became a UNESCO World Heritage Site. One of Sydney Opera House's most distinctive features is its roof, which consists of several clamshell-like shapes of undefined geometry. Well, I'm pretty sure there's a mathematical solution to drawing the roof with total accuracy. I'm no mathematician though. With something as potentially tricky as this, no matter what the subject, my approach is to start as simply as possible and consider the overall proportions. My starting point, in fact, is to divide the whole area where the building is going to go roughly into 6 parts. Although the 3 segments to the left are slightly more prominent than those to the right, they also increase gradually in height. But even though I'm familiar with the Sydney Opera House, this is the first time I've ever drawn it, so this is very much an exploratory exercise. Dividing the paper up with some simple guidelines should help to stop me from running out of space as I work roughly from left to right. My first pencil lines are light and tentative, with furry lines being the order of the day. This is because I'm trying to find the right shapes and know that I'll only get there after a little experimentation. I'm pretty sure the designer was able to whip up a draft of it in his lunchtime. No furry lines for him. My pencil sketching process always follows more or less the same pattern. Begin with the outlines and keep things as simple as possible. These are, after all, the foundations of any good, strong drawing, and they need to be as accurate as possible. Major errors at this early stage can be very difficult to cover up later on, and will always come back to haunt you. When faced with something as potentially tricky as this, there are ways to make the job easier, of course. Projection, tracing or grid methods are all ways of ensuring some degree of accuracy. On this occasion, however, I've opted to draw the scene out freehand. As a result, there will almost certainly be imperfections. Hopefully only minor ones, but I make no apologies for those. This is my preferred way of working, and as far as I'm concerned, pencil drawing is an organic, fun process. To my mind, total accuracy isn't always crucial, but it does improve with practice. Getting the proportions right is critical. I started by dividing the building up lengthways into 6 segments, but that's only a small part of the story. The roof has to sit right on the building below it, so it's important for those sloping lines to intersect at the correct points. It's also important for the sloping sides of the roof to curve at the right angle, and for the pointy tops to be neither too high nor too low. Once I'm satisfied with the general outline of my subject, it's time to start consolidating it. In this case, assuming I've already made any minor adjustments required, that means intensifying some of those lines to effectively lock it down. Well, this is also a good point at which to start shading in some of those extreme dark tones in the roof. Because when we work in pencil, we work from light to dark, I would normally say that the darkest tones should ideally wait to the end. In this case, however, I'm going to make an exception. Those dark bits are simply begging to be filled in, and I can't resist it. Well, it turns out drawing the Sydney Opera House wasn't actually that scary at all. Once the shape of the roof and the dark values had been established, the whole thing seemed to come together rather quickly, leaving me with the simple matter of applying some graded shading patterns to explain the three-dimensional properties of that roof. It's worth saying, by the way, that the roof of the Opera House is actually composed of over 1 million glossy white and matte cream tiles, creating a subtle chevron pattern. That's not a detail I'm going to be adding to this drawing though. The building is too far away from us for that to be visible, and if I did try to include it, there's a danger it would look too cluttered and take away some of its impact. Well, all that remains for me to do is to add some shading to the water of the harbour in the foreground. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I must say I expected that roof to be a little more problematic than it turned out to be. I rather enjoyed drawing it, in fact. So, having familiarised myself with a pencil sketch, the next stage is to paint it up in watercolour. Well, I'm going to be doing that in episode 2. See you very soon. Take care.